The strands of fate and circumstance sometimes guide us to surprising locations and people in the intricate fabric of life. It is twisted in sad circumstances and spun in a garment of righted fibers. When I tied the knot with my husband Dave, I assumed everything would be as ideal as it should be. I gave myself to him, my attention and loyalty. When he chose to send me divorce paperwork and favored his cruel sister over me, all the effort and attention I put into our relationship was wasted. This is the story of my sad relationship with the man I treated with great love and respect, who returned just cruelty. Am Lizzie. Our twisted relationship began with our fathers, best friends, and coworkers. To be honest, the narrative starts with a well-known twist of parental impact. Towering in the corporate world, my father maintained tight relationships with a lifetime friend, signing a contract that would entwine our paths. As it happened, this contract included my marriage to Dave, his son. Our folks had been promoting the story of us getting married from our early years. This concept would come back up in family get-togethers, trips, and important events. We were still young back then, hence I paid little care, as I knew their ambition will outgrow them. Dave's and my childhood history was regrettable. I could honestly state it was not the coziest. Our early years were marked by intense conflicts and confrontations that presented two rivals instead of friends. Even now, my parents teased us about our dog and cat bond, saying it would finally lead to romantic sentiments, but it did not turn out as they had hoped for. Dave never missed a minute to declare his disdain of me. He used to say he would sooner die than have me as his wife. His nasty and hostile attitude towards me made me believe I was unworthy of love and tender treatment. He would criticize me for being so demanding. That was the worst thing ever. It made me inadequate and insecure. Still, my sentiments for him ran strong among the hate and poor way he treated me. Though the love was not returned, I was hopelessly in love with him. Though he exhibited the opposite emotions, it sounded so desperate, and I wanted to be close to him. It hurt, of course, but I get used to it. My attraction for him developed while we were in high school, but his impressions of me had not changed. He contested that our families were linked, since he wanted no affiliation with a loser like me. Indeed, he would call me labels including lame, loser, boring, and oldie. He kept telling me I wasn't good for him since our levels were different. Could you stop hovering near me? You're a loser, and I wouldn't want to hang around with someone at your level, he remarked, disparaging me. As he spoke those words directly in front of me, my heart ached. Why, Dave, are you so nasty to me? Not even was I troubling you. Tell me to leave gracefully. You don't have to treat me like that, I begged. He rolled his eyes and merely grinned. Still, you are deserving of it. You cannot persuade me otherwise. Ugly and low girls like you are target for jokes and insults. But preserve silence and never respond, he said. He would continue to rationalize that he was correct no matter how many times I tried to defend myself. Why I still loved him escapes me. The objective of our parents changed with the years. Dave had only contempt for me, although the marriage plot grew. Dave thus made the decision to study overseas apart from the control of his parents' illogical intentions. Dave had not seen me during the whole college years. I just knew about his spending of his lifetime in the States. He would spend much of his time courting girls, visit bars and parties. Without either component, I could sense my sentiments for him gradually fading. It lacked the strength it formerly possessed. On top of that, I discovered how to focus on other things, especially myself. At last, I seized the opportunity to visit the gym, make skincare investments, pick makeup, and treat myself. I basically had my glow up. My self-esteem raised, my mental health got better, and I grew more confident. I began to especially adore my life. I met various people who wanted to court and date me with the major changes in my life, but I learned that loving myself was enough, so I turned away them. I began working for my startup company after graduate from college, aiming to make it successful, and buy a house I could call my own. I started from nothing. Months later, I got the word. Dave was at last returning from college. Like me, he graduated with a business degree and was destined to inherit his father's business in the next years. As he graduated with Latin honors and strong intellectual ability, everybody celebrated. We got back together during his triumph and Thanksgiving celebration. There were no strong emotions or resentment directed on me this time. It demonstrated that we had both actually grown over years. Around one another, we were quiet. He extended a handshake, and I reached out for it. I sensed a spark right away, the same emotions we experienced in our youth. "It's been a long time since we last met," he remarked, grinning sweetly and sending me butterflies. "Oh, sure it does. Nice to meet you once more," I think I murmured softly, feeling like my younger self once more. All night he continued glancing at me, blushing and giving subdued flattery. We caught up on each other's life and stayed all night telling tales about our college experiences. Our parents watched our interactions, and we had no idea their want for us to get married would arise. Resolved to carry out their scheme, they reopened the conversations on marriage and dating, therefore placing them once more on the agenda. Though the talk was unpleasant, I could tell our sentiments for one another had changed. Dave and I agreed that Dave and I should seal the fate of success and fruition for our parents so as to reinforce their alliance and the reputation and standing of our businesses. They thought that if we linked our family together, our relationship would be closer. Though I couldn't recall what transpired in the next several days and months, the only obvious fact is that our wedding was already under planning. As if it were not crucial, they did not even seek for our permission. But I'm at peace since Dave's contempt for me has disappeared at last. He obviously hates me being his wife, though. There were heartaches in the run-up to our wedding. I saw Dave among other girls, each interaction erasing a bit from my brittle heart. Seeing him with other girls still hurt me no matter how hard I tried to persuade myself that we should have a casual relationship. On top of that, one night my pal went to the club with others and told me Dave's buddies made fun of me. I started to form the basis of their nasty jokes punchline. Unbounded humiliation, a reminder of the unmet love driving my life, was intolerable. My friend reinforced their remarks on me. "Your wife will bound you to endure with that loser. She is a quite dull woman. I guess you will be a lonely lad. You knew what? Though I am young and wealthy, I desire not to be like you, marrying that downgrading girl." Dave, too, made some nasty remarks. "She's improved now. I believe I can take her as a wife." Keep up with that, as if I had a choice. I have to satisfy my dad. I can leave her for permanent once I get the inheritance under control. My heart began to beat really quickly. He wanted to satisfy his father and protect his inheritance, hence he just agreed on the marriage plan. I thought he would like me at some time exactly as I liked him. But it was only hope, false hope. It will never take place. I should have known better, but right now I am hurting. Dave then strangely changed. He started treating me better when we got back together, but I realized this was for show. He was merely acting to please me so he would advance personally. His eyes, his manner softened, and he started treating me kindly. The extreme difference from years of apathy and animosity was taxing. I could not, however, dispute that my heart flew as he showed concern and attention, but I never let my defense down. Fast forward, at last we sealed the vows. Many people joined us in celebration of our marriage. I had no idea how to put what I felt then. I felt dissatisfied. Driven into this for the wishes of my parents, I expected a life of suffering and heartbreak. Early on in our marriage, it felt as though love was at last flowering between us. Still, we were not kind to one another. We hardly slept in the same bed. Every kind deed was an exhibition for everyone to enjoy. Our first year of marriage was spent mostly in performance for everyone. Arguments were, of course, also present. Dave came home intoxicated one night. His birthday fell here. He wanted to spend time with his pals, hence he turned down celebrating it with my family. Of course, I expected that since he constantly pushing in my face that I was just a boring woman to be with. "Oh, look who we have here, the loser," he snorted. When I heard those words, I was tidying the living room. My hold on the curtain tightened, but I stayed quiet, resolved not to provide him the gratification of a response. "The most dull wife available anywhere. That's you, correct?" His voice clearly sounded mocking. I tightened my jaw, struggling to keep my cool, then turned away his sharp eyes. "I sometimes wonder what it would be like if I hadn't been compelled into this marriage to you." "Most likely much less boring," he said mercilessly. My heart hurt from the nasty words he spoke, and my fingers shook just slightly. Still not allowing his verbal onslaught to break my stillness, I inhaled steadyingly. "Less valuable. You are like that. Not even a reasonable discussion is something you could hold." His intoxicated comments cut right through me. Though my chest clenched, I said nothing. My quiet turned into a weapon, a counterpoint for his poisonous remarks. "I suppose by now you are accustomed to this? Becoming invisible. Being little. You are rather good at this." He never turned in his work. He continued to toss slights at me. Though I wiped them away, resolved to be strong, my eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "Well, darling, not to worry. I'll look for someone who is anything from dull. Someone who enlivens my life." What he just said really stunned me. My hands closed into fists, my nails biting into my palms. Tears welled up as the weight of his comments tore at me. He laughed at me just now. "Pathetic. I'm just honest. You're not able to be honest," he said sarcastically. I inhaled deeply, steadying myself. I cleaned away a tear that had leaked, not let his cruelty define my value. I was towering, a silent monument to fortitude against hardship. But then one day Kira, his half-sister, showed up without invitation. I had no idea he had younger sisters. We had known one another from our early years. She came from his mother's side, he told me. His parents separated when he was 5. From now on, Kira was to live with us. As Kira took front stage, my husband's metamorphosis was ephemeral and disappeared into the shadows. Dave's cold, apathetic behavior was more noticeable with her arrival. I watched from behind, a bystander to his developing loyalty to Kira. Their relationship grew and jealously hurt in my heart. I regularly watched them laughing, chatting, and even staying up late together. My doubts grew, and I couldn't understand they were simply siblings. But Kira's front was only that, a false mask covering her actual goals. Her mean-spiritedness and bullying proved evidence of her evil character. Though I knew all too well that she and Dave had conspired against me, her hate was unexplainable. She continued to be nasty to me. She would treat me cruelly, sometimes like a servant, whenever Dave wasn't present. "Your brother informed me you're not very excellent, thus kindly do my laundry for me." "At least you'll be acting moral," she would snort. She was really nasty, and Dave would always treat her well. He treated her well in comparison to me. Tried my best to live with it, concentrating on my career and completing the building of our ideal house. About 80% of our house was my contribution as well. The turning point in our narrative then came when Dave said he wanted Kira the house I had created, a monument to 5 years of unflinching commitment. It makes no difference if you say you paid for practically everything. You will follow all I say. I am your husband. About your feelings, I have no interest. My sister is due a house. You know what will happen if I divorce you. Obey me, or I will do that. Your father will despise and disown you," he said. Still, his last-ditch attempt to bend me to his will, a threat of divorce, did not break my will. I carried a secret that would permanently tip the scales of power. Under Kira's clever facade came a startling discovery. By means of background research, I revealed the truth. Dave's mistress, not half-sister. I spent every dollar I had running a background check on her when she first came into our lives. Under my unaware eye, their affair was an open secret carried out in the house I had built with tears and labor. Equipped with proof, I searched Dave's father for the truth about his son's treachery. As the understanding dawned, fury burned in his eyes. He quickly repudiated Dave. Once my pride and delight, the house became his father's acquisition, and I was paid for my work. He insisted on giving me twice its worth so that I would have money of my own. Dave's father drove them from my house, including the mistress. Right before us, he disowned Dave. As Dave's father tore up the letter declaring Dave as the successor of his company, I watched how terror flashed before Dave's eyes. Dave's riches and inheritance tore just as he tore the paper, and his mistress ran since she was now poor. I started a divorce, cutting the final links holding us together. Dave's universe collapsed, his acts plaguing him constantly. The retribution was a lyrical triumph over the powers trying to break me, not only fulfilling. I came out of it all stronger, driven by the notion that my cleverness and tenacity had flipped the script for people who had undervalued me. The storm left behind a range of feelings. As the bonds of a loveless marriage were at last severed, I felt release. Years of emotional upheaval, shame, and betrayal started to weigh less. Knowing that my strength had won, and that I had negotiated the dangerous seas of dishonesty and come out on top gave me comfort once the divorce was finalized. The next days presented difficulties as well. The whispers of society told another tale, one in which I was the culprit, having split apart an apparently content family. Behind closed doors, though, people were gradually solving the riddle and revealing the truth buried under layers of lies. The aftermath featured equally mixed feelings, from friends who had always stood by me and from those who had seen my marriage change. I discovered support in unlikely places. As they say, the truth shows itself, and with it came fresh appreciation for my resiliency. One important turning point was Kira's leaving from our life. Her real name and goals were revealed like wildfire, revealing her as the manipulative interloper she had been. Her humiliation was poetic retribution, reflecting the damage she caused upon me. Her leaving closed a chapter ending in the great narrative of my life. Dave's sentence was severe, appropriate for his degree of betrayal. He was alone and lonely after his inheritance vanished. His true parentage came to light, and his father disowned him. The same conceit and rudeness that had defined him came back to plague him, separating him from the world he had known. The retribution not only made sense, but also signaled a metamorphosis inside me. The encounter enhanced my senses and heightened my judgment of people's motivations. It strengthened my resilience by reminding me of my will to ride out the tides of life. My narrative finally turned into one of emancipation and atonement. It was evidence of the force of knowledge and the discovery of the facts hidden under surface level. Though it could have been unusual, my path from unmet love to humiliation to retaliation was mine. Rising from the wreckage of a failed marriage, I realized the phoenix that had sprung from the ashes was wiser and stronger than before. Should you find yourself in Lizzie's shoes, how would you approach things? Tell us in the part for comments below. For further material like this, remember to subscribe to the channel and like our videos. From abroad.